Hi guys, happy Sunday. Wanted to share this video of how to write an argumentative essay in AP Gov. This is the most critical video that I'll show in that it is worth 60% of your AP grade. How you do on this argumentative essay will directly affect your likelihood of passing. Now, it is changed slightly for the coronavirus. They've actually scaled it down. There's no longer rebuttal. And I think it's a little bit more straightforward. Now, if you pay attention to this video, you take notes, use my template, it'll definitely help you in your ability to pass. So I would encourage you to pay attention. I'm going to try and make this quick. I've actually filmed this twice now. I'm trying to get it better, really pare it down, make it just so it's the bare essentials so you know what to include. So your argumentative essay is just that. The FRQ AP is going to give you a prompt, okay? The good thing is we know the prompt is going to relate to some concept within Unit 1, Unit 2, or Unit 3. From there, we're going to have to develop an argument. We have to take a stand, yes or no. You got to make a claim. So here is an example of a FRQ that AP gave. You'll see the top part right here. I'm going to put it in present mode. The top portion is the prompt. The United States Constitution establishes a federal system of government. Under federalism, policy making is shared between national and state government. Over time, the powers of the national government have increased relative to the state, right? The federal government has gotten bigger. Develop an argument. Say yes or no. That's what that means, as to whether the expanded powers of the national government benefits or hinders policymaking. Policymaking refers to making laws. So they're going to give you a prompt. From this, develop an argument. You have to, excuse me, yes or no. Now, in your argument, they're going to ask you to use two pieces of evidence, to cite two sources. Typically, it's going to be two documents of the 9 foundational documents. Sorry, I was doing a little yard work. So in your essay, you're going to articulate a defensible claim or thesis. You create a thesis that addresses the prompt and establishes a line of reasoning. I'm going to explain this. Next, in 2 paragraphs, your body paragraphs, you're going to explain how the documents you choose, and you get to choose, support your argument. Cool? And then you explain why that is. There's no rebuttal. So thesis, and then 2 body paragraphs, each body paragraph relating to your document that you choose, evidence within your document, explain what your document is, why it is applicable, and then why it connects to your thesis. There you go. So it's very straightforward. Here is the AP prompt. Now, I think it's a little confusing. So I've developed this prompt to the right. I think it's much nicer and neater and does a better job of explaining how you should attack it to make sure that you get those points. I've actually included in this link, and you have access to this link, and I would encourage you to print it out, have it next to you so you can reference. So while you're, a week from now creating your test, creating your answer, you have this that you can reference. Make sure you have those sentence structures. So just going forward, paragraph 1 is your thesis. So up here, that is 1 point. Now you're going to break down the 2 body paragraphs. Body paragraph 1 and 2 are paragraph 2 and 3 respectively. Each paragraph 2 and 3 is going to give you 3 points. Okay, and it's 3 points for each document that you choose. So that'll total 7 points. So the thesis is 1 point. Then each document, which is going to be your paragraphs, are going to have opportunities for you to earn 3 additional points per paragraph per document. I then encourage you to include a 4th paragraph, a culminating sentence, which is just your thesis restated to make sure that you get that thesis point. And here's why. That thesis point is so critical. If print this out, have this next to you. If not, take a photocopy of it, write it down. It's going to be very vital for you. I've also given you the foundational docs. You'll see your prompt is going to give you potentially, well, not potentially, 3 foundational docs that you get to choose from. You have to use one of those 3 documents in either of your body paragraphs. So you got to use one. Your other paragraph, though, you can choose from any of the other foundational docs, any other Supreme Court cases. Here is your thesis. Make this very straightforward. Have your thesis be one sentence, okay? And there's 4 things I want you to include in your sentence, and this is bottom left here. First, relating to the prompt, make a claim. So they'll give you a prompt, restate that prompt, echo location, maybe reword it, tweak it around a bit, and then make a claim. What do I mean by make a claim? Say definitively yes or no to the given statement. It is an argument. You can't be wishy-washy and say maybe. You got to say yes or no. So in this case, develop an argument. Here's our example about whether the expanded powers of the national government benefits or hinders policymaking. So you've got to distinctly say in your claim whether the federal government getting bigger helps, benefits, or hinders our ability to make laws. So that's the first part of your sentence, and I would include it all in your thesis. The second part is to say because. Because is the most important word in your argument essay. I would have it 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. Always saying because this, because that. Be repetitive. It's okay if you're, it's not a great essay. Mr. Vanek might not like it. It doesn't flow. Who cares? We're just trying to get our points, get in and get out. Okay? So you don't have to do flowery writing. Just be very straightforward, very clear. So include a claim, yes or no. Because the federal government, the expanding powers of the national government benefits policymaking. Claim overall. Because it hits that second, because. Then the third part is your line of reasoning, the why. What is your rationale? Why do you believe that is? So you got to not just say you agree or disagree. You got to say because and then why. So in this case, federal government getting power bigger benefits policymaking because, here's my line of reasoning, it prevents, get my pointer out, it prevents, prevents delays such as states making conflicting laws or states violating federal laws and civil rights laws. So the argument here is that federal government is more streamlined, it's quicker. So that is the line of reasoning. Now, in mine, I want you to have the line of reasoning. That's the third part. The fourth part I also want you to say is as evidenced by the 2 documents that you choose from. And again, one of them's got to be from the required list of 3. That's going to be in your prompt. The second you can use from any of the other documents, a Supreme Court case, whatever. So in this case, I would have had the expanding powers of the national government benefits policymaking overall. That's my claim. Because it prevents delays such as states making conflicting laws or states violating federal laws and civil rights. That is my reasoning, line of reasoning. Why do you believe that? Where are you going? And then I would say, as demonstrated by the Articles of Confederation and the U.S. Constitution and the Federalist 10. And then those documents that you choose, A and B, those are going to be your body paragraphs. So you need to have that thesis. If you do not score that thesis, you do not give me all 4 components of that, you can only earn 1 point out of 7 in this essay, not including the thesis. If you get the thesis, you're game to get all 7 points. That's why at the end, I say restate that thesis to potentially, if you didn't nail it at the beginning, to get it back. And I'll explain more at the end. So that's your thesis. And again, it only needs to be 1 sentence. Doesn't need to have an intro paragraph, nothing like that. Be very clear. You only get 25 minutes to write this. Now your body paragraphs, paragraphs 2 and paragraphs 3, each paragraph is going to relate specifically to one of the 2 documents that you choose. The one that you've chosen from the list, the other is up to you. And I would just have this be 3 sentences. Your first sentence, you are going to identify the document. and I give you the template, as seen in Federalist 10, as seen in Articles of Confederation, there are problems when the states have sovereignty. Boom. You identified the document and you cited some evidence that supports your claim, right? Your thesis as to why. So your identify here, and I'm just giving an example. As seen in the Articles of Confederation, there are problems when the states have sovereignty. Boom, identify. That gives me 1 point. Next, I got to describe. This describe is basically you telling the readers you know what the Articles of Confederation are about. So give a little bit of a description as to the articles in relation to what you did above. So I mentioned in my identify sentence that it creates state sovereignty. So I'm going to describe that further. The Articles of Confederation created a system of government. It was our first system of government whereby the states had the power to enact laws for themselves. It created a very weak central government where the central government really only had the powers to declare war. Other than that, states had the sovereignty to raise an army, to create taxes, that sort of thing, right? You're describing what the document is, okay? After you describe it, you're going to explain. And again, just in relation to the identify and describe that you did, it's got to connect back to those two previous sentences as well as connect to your thesis. So again, your thesis is, in this case, the national government getting bigger helps making policies. So again, as demonstrated within the Articles of Confederation, you're going to elaborate, you're going to give an example, you're going to close a loop. So in this case, I would mention something about Shays' rebellion, where Daniel Shays had a rebellion, and because the Articles of Confederation were so weak, they created a weak central government where the central government had a hard time putting down the rebellion, and this was very problematic. Why? Because the federal government couldn't create a standing army because the states were sovereign. Again, I'm going to connect it back. So identify, describe, and explain. Those are going to be your three sentences. The identify is just very straightforward. Telling me as seen in this document, connect to the thesis. Describe that document, give more evidence. What is it about? And then the explain, that's the hardest point to get. Go deeper, explain, and make that connection back to your thesis, right? The Articles of Confederation, where states were sovereign, hinders policymaking because, boom. Say that because and explain it. Close the loop. Don't leave any circle undone. We want that point. So here's the example. And you'll notice it's color coded. Blue, green, yellow for identify, describe, and explain. So let's just go over that real quick. And then this would just be one paragraph. Our first body paragraph where the evidence is the Articles of Confederation. So intro, you're identifying. In the United States first government, the Articles of Confederation, the national government was much weaker than states' governments. There you go. Boom. It identifies it. It relates to the prompt about power between states and federal government. So boom, you get that point for identifying. Okay, let's describe the Articles of Confederation. That's where it is in here in green. Because of this, the Articles of Confederation, AOC, were very weak and were unable to do many things. Right? It's describing why it's weak. One of the weakest points of the AOC was the inability of the federal government to raise taxes. Instead, the states were given the ability. This was a detriment to the country as the national government was now unable to afford a standing army. Because of this, so there was a massive rebellion that the government was unable to put down. So you identified, you said Articles of Confederation were weak. Boom, you identified. B, your description. Why was it weak? What are some evidence? What are some examples within the document? Cite the document. How is it weak? Here's what I want. I want you on the test to have a document that you can reference that has all the 9 foundational documents so that you can know what they're about, so that you can use it should you need the time, should you be stuck. You can reference that document quickly. You only have 25 minutes so that you can better describe it. Get those points. And then yellow, the hardest part, now that you've identified that it's weak, you've described within the document why it's weak, your yellow is going to be because it's weak and how it relates to the thesis, how it demonstrates the articles that a national government that is expanded powers has helped policymaking. So the Articles of Confederation is a strong reasoning that increased federal power is beneficial because, and I would restate my thesis. I would say the Articles of Confederation demonstrate that a stronger federal government is necessary to make policymaking because, restate the thesis. Do that over and over again. Each of your evidence paragraphs, the last sentence, I would restate my thesis with the because and why my document specifically addresses and answers the thesis. So why is the increased federal power beneficial? Because the lack of one caused rebellions within the country that were unable to put down due to a weak federal government and selfish states. If the Articles of Confederation strengthened the national government initially, Shays' rebellion would have been stopped and the Articles of Confederation would have been made stronger. Again, not the best sentence. There's some actually in this paragraph that's wrong. That's okay, right? You can have some things that are incorrect. So long as it supports your argument, that's okay. But your yellow portion, the why. Explain it. Give an example. Your example can be hypothetical. It can relate to a real example of what's going on. I think Corona, there's a lot of stuff that we're familiar with that's like a lot of good government related topics that we can insert directly in our essay. Add Supreme Court cases, something from government that explains it and close the loop. Now, your next body paragraph, the second body paragraph, paragraph 3 for you, you're redoing that exact same body paragraph with the identify, describe, and explain. But now you got to choose what other document. If you've already used one of the documents from the 3 that were provided, you can use a second from the list, or you can use any other document, any other Supreme Court case, any other example. And you do not have to use your, like, say you only want to use the Articles of Confederation, that can be your second body paragraph. You can talk about Federalist 51, something like that first. So it doesn't need to necessarily be in order, but make sure you have that thesis. So here's your second body paragraph. A second piece of evidence can come from any other foundational document not used as your first piece of evidence, or it may be from your knowledge of course concepts. Use reasoning to explain your evidence supports your thesis. Again, this was from your prompt. So let's just read what this is. Another benefit to the expanded powers of the national government is ensuring that civil rights are not infringed by states. Boom. They kind of gave an example. They haven't described a document, though, but they did talk about civil rights. Throughout history, several states have implemented segregational policies against minorities without checks. In the case Shaw v. Reno, here we go. They've identified a Supreme Court case. The state of North Carolina had used, Faside just called me our custodian, had used gerrymandering to split votes up racially with districts as thin as the interstate. They identified the state. Boom, that's a point. In this case, now they're going to describe it. The Supreme Court had ruled that this act by the North Carolina was unconstitutional and violated the 14th Amendment. They described it. They've explained in connection to civil rights how it infringes, states have infringed upon people's liberties. Now, here is the because. Here is the explanation. And I would have this sentence structure. This document is proof that my thesis is right. This case is strong proof for a strong federal government because without a Supreme Court looking over the states, the North Carolina would have been able to racially gerrymander indefinitely. Allowing states to have no checks on them would do more harm than good because states could get out of hand and violate amendments as seen in Shaw v. Reno. Boom. Identify, describe that document, describe that Supreme Court case, and then they explain why elaborate, give examples, close the loop. Okay, so you're taking notes on that. Here is the thesis, the template that I provide. Again, each box, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are the 7 points. Now, what I want you to do, and again, I give you this template. Here's the link. I give you a document for the foundational documents that you can use, you can reference. I would have them with me during the test. There's nothing that says you can't. Be a good test taker. I provide the sentence structures. The fourth paragraph, I would reword my first sentence. Sometimes when you're writing your essay, especially if it's quick, maybe you haven't fleshed out your argument quite yet. And then it hits you. Okay, this is what I'm proving, right? And I just did that second and third paragraph, but I don't know if I really clearly said that in the first one. So in this case, I'm going to clearly restate my thesis again. Maybe a more condensed version, maybe expanded, but maybe things have changed from your initial thesis as you were writing second paragraph, third paragraph, that you're going to now address in the fourth paragraph. Just one culminating sentence where I would say, as evidenced by my documents, document A, document B, expanding the federal government has helped benefit policymaking because it has allowed more coherent structure of government where states are not creating conflicting laws and states do not have the ability to infringe upon people's civil liberties and civil rights. Whatever that is, your thesis statement, you're going to combine the documents, create like an overarching goal that they have, what connects them, and then your documents A and B are going to be more detailed and explain how they connect to your thesis. So that's it. There's not really a conclusion sentence necessary. You only have 25 minutes. You can have these documents close to you if you want to reference. College Board is using plagiarism, so please do not copy and paste. They will find out. They're talking about using bigger software. So other than that, that's pretty much it. Hope this helps you guys. I would have this reference. There you go. We can practice one right now. So here you go. Let's do a practice. Here's an example that I created relating to COVID. It's the same thing. During national crisis, who should have power to protect their citizens? State government or federal government? All right. Using these 3 documents, 10th Amendment, Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, the executive, or Federalist number 70, you've got to explain why you believe that the federal government should have the power or states. So I'm just going to give a good example of a thesis statement. And again, I'm just going to restate kind of in my own words the prompt. So in times of public health and national crises, you can say, I believe, that's fine, but we already know it's you. The national government, here it is, should the federal government executive branch take a larger role in the response of global health? The national government should, I'm making a claim, they should play a larger role to help citizens because, here's the second part, because, and then the third is going to be my line of reasoning, they have greater authority, ability, and it creates, and the Fed Gov creating national policies creates a more coherent and thus easier to follow method as demonstrated or as evidenced by Federalist 70. I'm going to use one from Federalist 70, and let's use the Articles of Confederation. So again, I chose Federalist 70. That's going to be my first body paragraph. Articles of Confederation, I could choose. That's going to be my second. But my thesis has those 4 parts. I make a claim. Yes, they should. I have because, a line of reasoning, and then what documents I'm going to use to find that evidence. So let's just go. Second paragraph, kind of creating this on the spot. Let's identify. Federalist 70 describes the powers that the president has to support our citizens. Boom, I identified what the document is. I'm talking about maybe I should do more to relate it to the prompt, so in times of national crisis. But my description is where I'm going to go into more detail about what Fed 70 is and what it calls for and how it relates to one person being quicker, being swifter to protect our citizens. Fed 70, here's my description, argues for a single, energetic president that has autonomy to make decisions in times of national crises. So I'm doing a little describing. Maybe I want to go deeper because there's only one president as opposed to three, or all of Congress, or all 50 states. This allows one person to act swifter. I'm describing it. Maybe it's helpful too. This is part of Fed 70, where if there's one actor, it's the person that gets the credit or the blame. It's easier to hold one person accountable. So those are all pieces that I'm describing that relate to the power. So then my explanation, that's got to be more. So I would say, I would restate my thesis. The federal government have authority, or the federal government should have more power to create policy during crises because, right? So I'm restating my thesis, and then because crises as seen from Fed 70 because X, Y, and Z. And then I can give a real example where maybe if President Trump decided to, and we see this, maybe, he called in the National Guard to New York. That allows safety to been done, right? So the president has the authority to make sure that people are safe. So your explanation is your why. Why is your claim correct, right? So provide examples. They can be hypothetical examples. Close the loop. Then your third paragraph is the same thing with the Articles of Confederation, whatever that document is that you choose, right? The Articles of Confederation were our first government that instilled a strong state sovereignty. The Articles of Confederation, I'm describing what they look like. They only had a unicameral legislative branch. That was the only branch. Because they only had the legislative branch, this caused problems in times of crises. For example, here's my explanation. Shays' Rebellion. Shays' Rebellion was problematic. If we had a strong central government, they could do more to support our citizens, or that states alone can't act, right? So you can take kind of the negative with that. Anyway, I hope that helps. 7 points up for grabs. Have the template with me. But if you are very clear, your thesis has those 4 parts, and then your body paragraphs, you're identifying, describing, explaining why, giving examples, connecting the loop, providing evidence in the description that you know what it is, you should be good. And then lastly, restate your thesis in your own words, sum it up as demonstrated from Doc A and Doc B. This proves that I was right because, and then your line of reasoning. Okay? You guys can handle this. Please, please, please make sure you know how to write the argument essay. It's that critical. All right. Good luck to you guys. Hope this helped.